Hi everyone, long time no see. I know it's been a long time, and while this is the first video that I'm going to be posting ever since my hiatus, or I guess like when I quit a year and a half ago, this isn't the video that I wanted you to see first, but you know what? It's okay, this video is gonna get made anyway, so whether it's first, last, it doesn't really matter. So as you already saw by the title of today's video, this is a staple content of mine that I have been doing for years, ever since elementary school, but this is the last time that you're going to see it being done in this iteration, just because recently I've been broadening, expanding my horizons, trying very different types of categories, products, things, experiences, whatever the case may be. So this is going to be the last sort of like only strictly reading wrap-up TBR that you're going to see from me, because from here on out I'd like to do like more chatty favorite style videos, but I don't have as much time as I used to employ into reading, but I have been spending time in other hobbies, pursuing other interests, and I feel like it's things that are worthy of talking about in a video such as this. So from here on out, what I think I'm going to be doing is like these sit down chatty type of favorites videos, kind of just like as a reflection of the month and kind of like as a video diary as well. But that doesn't mean that this video is any less important. And before I get into the 3 books that I read in the month of June, I want to talk about kind of where I'm at with my reading and sort of like my consumption in general, because I'm currently on a book buying ban, and I want to explain to you the rules that I'm under. As I just said, I don't have as much time to employ into reading, but I was noticing that I was constantly looking out for book content and books. Like I was consuming a lot of book content and like always at the library looking for new books, going to the thrift store to look for new books, going to the used bookstore, going to Barnes & Noble, going to boutique bookstores, and I was realizing that I was only buying books for the sake of buying them. And I feel like I also kind of fell into the same loop when it came to buying and collecting video games, because even though video games you can pick up much more, I guess, liberally, because some of them are not as intense and some of them are not as complicated as some of the books that I tend to gravitate towards, I realized that it's not necessarily where I want to employ my time and money. So I'm doing a book ban, and I also think I'm going to be doing a video game buying ban, even though once I tell you these rules, it's going to be less strict for video games than it is for books. But anyway, I did a count of how many unread books I had, and keep in mind that these unread books isn't necessarily a lot of books, but for somebody who reads like 20 something books a year, most of them being comics and graphic novels, that's a lot of books to get through. So when I did my count, I had a total of 131 books, 79 of those being physical on these 2 shelves that you see behind me, as well as 51 on Kindle, whether that be books, Kindle, or I think I have like a third-party reading app, like I think I do, but I have 51. My rules are as follows. I cannot buy any books that would contribute to my physical TBR, obviously. The only way that I can allow myself to buy a book is if I'm going to buy a book that I've already read, because if I'm buying that book, it's because I like it enough to have it on my shelves. So that one's also pretty self-explanatory. Also, if I'm going to read through a series, like for example, I have a series here that I read in the month of June. If I read the first book, the second, and I'm missing the second or the third, I can only buy the one following that. So if I'm on the 3rd book of a series and there's a 4th and 5th, I can only buy the 4th if and only if I'm going to read that 4th book right after. And in order to give myself a little bit of leniency, because we all know there are times where it's just like you really want that book, but the rules don't allow for it, I said that for every 5 books that I read on my TBR, I can buy 1. This book buying ban has really made me more aware of what's on my shelves, because every time that I was looking for a new book to read, I would just buy like 1, 2, 3 books, even though I have books on my bookshelves that I used to buy when I was being more intentional about my purchases, because books are a little expensive nowadays, and I realized that I have a lot of good books on my shelves that I'm kind of just neglecting. So it's helped me to sort of like delay that gratification, where it's like if I want a book, put it there, get it from the library, borrow it from somebody, and eventually when you get there, if you really want it, after you read 5 books, you could get that one. So I feel like it's been working out pretty good. So without further ado, let me show you the 2 books that I read this month that went to that 5-for-1 book. The first 2 books I read this month were books that are part of a series. I'm going to talk about them in conjunction, and that is Nana by the very famous Ai Yazawa. And this is a story about 2 girls named Nana who moved to Tokyo at the same time. They're the same age and they have the same name, and they end up moving to the same apartment together, and basically the story starts there, and it just deals with them as they deal with love, insecurities, growing up, life, having to work, chasing your dreams, having to pick between your reality and the things that you want. And I feel like when you see this series on TikTok and social media, it's either like romanticized or aestheticized. I don't know if that's a word, but like Nana has a very big imprint on like internet subcultures, I guess I could say. Like, I don't know if that's the expression I'm looking for, but that's what I'm going to use. And when you do read the series, obviously I haven't finished it, so I can't say if people are being unfounded or not, even though I have to say I kind of agree. When you read the series, you see how tender and how forgiving it is. Not necessarily forgiving, but how lenient it is, because a lot of these characters are like 19, 20, 21, like early 20s, early career, like young adults, and they're bound to make mistakes and they're bound to mess up. But at the end of the day, even though they do mess up, it gives them the tenderness and the space to make those mistakes. And I think that that is so sweet. And this is one of the first slice of life series that I actually enjoyed, because many of them sort of fall into these, like, I don't know, like they become very tropey. And obviously Nana does have tropes as well, but it just does it in such a way that, like, let me just show you. When they make this face right here, I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously it's Aizawa's art style, but every time I see like scenes where those eyes come out, I know it's about to be a heavy hitter. I ended up giving the first 2 volumes a 4 out of 5 stars, but it's still a very good series nonetheless, and I can't wait to keep reading it. I love it. The last book I read, which is a book that I bought full price right when it came out, and it took me a few months to read it, even though I wanted to read it instantly, which is why I started this book ban in the first place, is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This was everything. This was everything. Obviously, I did write a very long review on Goodreads saying everything that I thought was wrong with this book. And I guess wrong is the incorrect word to use, because there's not necessarily anything wrong with this book. I just feel like the limitations of being a prequel story of something that we already know happens sort of like limits the story. Like, we all know how the original Hunger Games series ends. We all know how Hamish's games ends. We all know how Hamish himself ends up. And seeing it wasn't necessarily as impactful as maybe something like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakewas, which I don't own that book, but I think I will eventually. Even though it's not as impactful, it still hits. Every time that we go into the Hunger Games, I am just surprised at how Suzanne Collins can keep going and keep writing a story and keeping things fresh for us as a readership. And there isn't much I could say about this book that hasn't already been said. So if you would like to see my full in-depth thoughts, go to the description. I'll link my review on my Goodreads and you can read it there, because I'll say it there better than I could ever say it here. Now I'm gonna get into the books that I want to read in July, and I have 5 books on a Goodreads shelf that I want to get to for sure that are on my shelves, but I think that I'll add like 1 or 2 like wishful options just in case like I really have a lot of time to read this month. I want to get to those as well. The first book being Preacher Volume 2. I read Preacher Volume 1 because I bought it at the used bookstore, I think like a few months ago, or maybe like at the end of last year, and I had it for a bit and I was like, you know what, this looks cool, everybody's recommended it to me, and I read it. The first half of the story I was having trouble connecting to, but that second half, like that second story arc, which I guess would be like the second trade paperback, blew me out of the water. I gave the first one a 5 out of 5, and to give you a very quick synopsis, Preacher is a story about a preacher, you guessed it, who gets the power to speak the word of God, and from there it just ensues. I would say that if you are religious and you are someone who does not enjoy reading sacrilegious things, offensive things, a lot of curse words, there's a lot of sexual content in here, do not, I'm telling you now, do not read this. I don't want to hear, oh my god, I read Preacher because you told me to and I didn't like it. I'm warning you. If you cannot handle those things, or if you do not like reading about those things, don't read it. But if you do, if you can't handle it, or you do enjoy reading these sort of like transgressive stories, please read Preacher. This is so good. I'm about halfway through this one, but when I did read this, I didn't have a lot of time, so I was kind of just like breezing through it. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and read this. I also have the third one, but just for this month, I want to read this one because I'm excited to see where the story's going. Next, I'm going to read one of the most iconic Superman comic storylines ever, and that is All-Star Superman. I also got this at the used bookstore. The Superman movie's coming out July 11th, so I think this will be the first book that I read in July. If you haven't read All-Star Superman, or if you haven't heard about it, basically Superman is on the way out, and basically he's just doing his like last final feats, and I don't know, just being Superman. I've read it before. I read this in what I consider the dark days, so I don't remember anything about it. I don't remember even if I liked it that much. I probably didn't. That's why it's called the dark days, but I'm excited to read this. Moving on, I have Run Wild by Wu Zhe. That's what we're gonna go for. I know I butchered the hell out of the name, but that is okay. This is a coming of age romance, Danmei. If you haven't read Heaven Official's Blessing, that is one of the best fantasy romance Danmei series ever made. But I heard that this was one of the best like coming of age, like slice of life Danmei, so I bought this, I actually pre-ordered this and never read it. You see? Second to last, we have A Wrestling Life by Dan Gable. This is a book that I bought a few months ago, I think maybe on eBay. I think I got this for like $7. Collegiate wrestling, Olympic wrestling, not WWE type wrestling, is my personal favorite sport. I love reading about it. I love watching it when I get the chance. It's something that is sort of like a constant in my life, even though I don't participate in it anymore. But this is one of the most celebrated, respected American wrestlers ever, so I want to read his life. I don't know if people like this book, if they think it's particularly interesting, but I don't care because I want to read it. Finally, the last book that is on my priority to read in the month of July is Until I Meet My Husband by Ryosuke Nanosaki. I bought this book, I think, 3 years ago. Yes, 3 years ago, because I was just starting college. I bought this book full price as an ebook. I read like 20% of it and never got back to it, and I want to finish it. Finally, my 2 stretch goal books, or maybe these books will replace the others that I have on this list, are My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante and Small Boat by Vincent Delacroix. Both of these books are very celebrated for very different reasons, and even though I know that they tend to be on a bit of the heavier side, I'm fine with that because I know Small Boat is very short and My Brilliant Friend is one of the most celebrated books of the 21st century, so I'm excited for that as well. Anyways, that's all that I have to talk about in this video. This will not be the last time that you see me, trust and believe. I really feel like I've gotten to a point where I know the direction that I want to take my content in, so hopefully soon I'll be doing more sit-down videos, some mukbangs, and eventually, I promise, some vlogs. If you watched it all this way, tell me what you read in the month of June, what you plan on reading / doing in the month of July, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.